Welcome back, dear students. In this section of the course on Solidity, we are using Solidity to write your first smart contract as a beginner. I will majorly be touching about the essential building blocks of Solidity smart contract. When you talk about any language, there is always building blocks which we usually call syntax. Those are the things that are essential for you to put together in order to use the language to achieve whatever you want to do. So the same goes for Solidity programming language. There's some things you need to know that when you put them together, they serve as a building block to write your smart contract. So the first one under this section that we'll be talking about is Introduction to Variable and Variable Data Types. So we are going to look at what variable and what are the available variable data type. And at the same time, I think at the end of the video, I should be able to add a link to you, probably to the forum, so for you to check out more Solidity variables for you to expand your knowledge. But for now, I just want to show you and get you on that. In any programming language, variable is a kind of data type that you have which help you to hold different data type values. You know, if you write something like 2 plus 2 and you get the answer, if you don't save it in a variable, how will you be able to call it back later? So those are part of the help and the good use of variables. So we'll talk extensively about the variables you need to know in Solidity in this section of the course. Now let's get on. I want to believe you're already familiar with this particular smart contract, which I took from the previous one we did. Yeah, sorry. So it should just be that one. So I took it from the previous video on when we learned about how Solidity is written. So I told you should not worry about all this code, function, public, pure, returns, all those things. Now we're still going to discuss about them in depth. So now we are getting started on that, first with variable. Now if you want to declare variable, like I already told you, you have idea of why we need a variable to help us hold a data type for reuse within our code. So if we don't, you just write it once, 2 plus 2 equals to 4. Then you need it in another function, or you need it in future in your code. How will you call it? You get what I'm saying? Or you want to save some information. So that's why variable is essential. Now in Solidity, there is a way we declare variable. And if you have watched the previous video about JavaScript versus Solidity, you already have some idea of it. But I'm going to now go over that a bit, not with JavaScript, just purely Solidity this time around. Now we have different type of variable data type. One is, for example, we have, it could be int a equals to 1. This is number, or we call it integer / number. So but it's a number, but it's an integer. We have another one which we call uint. This was the one I usually mistakenly I just type unit. So you need to be careful of that. uint. Let's say this is b equals to 2. Then we call this unsigned integer. So don't forget, it is still a what? Number. Now I will explain what's the difference between the two here for you. The difference between this, you will just realize it now, is though both are numbers, this can take both negative number and positive numbers. But this can only take positive numbers. I don't know if you get that. Just keep that in mind. So this can take positive, that's 1 or -1 number, while this can only take 1. That's a positive number. You get what I'm saying? So, we are dealing with money. I've already told you earlier. Usually, by default, every smart contract can handle money. So, there are many cases you don't want a situation where people can interact or send funds with a minus balance. So, usually in your smart contract token balance, there shouldn't be like minus, because who is going to pay it back? You get what I'm saying now? So, as a balance. That's why we have uint and then we have int. So depending on which part or what you need to program in your smart contract should determine what you use. But based on my own experience, most times I usually prefer uint, except when I know that I'm going to deal with negative number. If not, I try to use uint to prevent the situation of somebody trying to hack into my smart contract and take advantage of the ability to run uint also on a negative number. Hope you get that. So let's move on. Then the next one we have is, we can just call it text. Yeah, I think we should call this number variable and text variable data type, so that you can understand this much clearly. Now let's go on to the text. That's when you can now have something like string C equals to programming FAQ.com. Again, I'm saying, so or always put your website. So remember to add this. Then we can have string name. Let me teach you something here. Instructor name equals to Solomon Foske. And as usual, you should close this up. You get it now. So when you look at this, the difference, you see this int or uint. Now, I've explained in the previous video that Solidity, unlike things like JavaScript, is a typed programming language, which means whatever this variable data type will be, you have to specify it first here before you give the name of that variable. So, this is string. Anything that is a text, when you are writing string, you must always put it inside a quote. For example, if I delete this quote now, there will be an error. Do you see it? Undeclared identifier. So there will be an error. This should always be, anything can now go, including number, plus 1. It still work, because this is not really seen as a number, because it will be seen like a text usually. Do you get what I'm saying now? So that's how this works. Then you can notice that I use initial small I and use capital N. In programming, we call this camel case. So the first letter will be I, will be small. The first word, the first letter of the first word will be small letter. Why any other word that follows it? If, for example, if I say instructor full name, do you get it now? So you can see it clearly here, Solomon Foske. So this is string. This is how you write a string. So you start seeing this. You can remember this, return hello world. I told you we start explaining. So that was why this add string. And I don't think do I still have the, let me see, and let's try and deploy this. Okay, let's use this in name. So like I always say, let's try and change this name so that it doesn't mix with, and we know the exact thing we are working with. Yeah, so that's it. Now we save this, we come back here, we deploy. You can now see it. So deploy it, and we have it here. Then you remember hello world. Now this same one, if I want to change it to, I just say 1, I need to change here to uint, and we deploy this same contract. You see, here we have 1, here we have hello world. Do you get what I'm saying? So you will see that it followed this same principle, that you shouldn't use any quote. This can also be a single quote. It doesn't really matter, but it can be double quote, it can be single quote. So for example, if I turn this back and decided to use a single quote, learn and in with programmingFAQ.com. So we have that's the issue with, we have to always change the output. We'll still learn all this. So, but for now we are learning about variable. Just take it step by step. So now let me try and redeploy this. Deploy, and then we have this. You can always minimize all this one so that you can see the new one, or just delete them. So we have the hello world. You see, learn and end with programmingFAQ.com. So you can see that both the single and those codes are working. That's it. So we have learned variable type number, we have learned text. Let's go to another one we call Boolean. So this type of variable is just two. Is either is yes or it is no. That means it's either true or false. So we use it when we are doing logic, like comparison, like If this is yes, do this. If it is false, do this. You get what I'm saying? So if it is true, do this. So in this case, we write it as bool. And then let's always use something that relates to whatever you want to type. So don't just be writing like A equals to this, B, except those A make sense in your contract. Always use a name like this: website, instructor, full name. So it makes it easier for you in case your smart contract has bug, or any other developer that want to work on it in future, or even those that want to interact with your smart contract outside of you as the developer, can easily trace things up. So bool, let's say this to be logic confirmation equals to true. So we have this now. That's, like I told you earlier, that's advantage of Solidity. It will always point you out. So this ought to be double O. So you can see it now. We have it. Logical confirmation equals to true, or it can be false. So it's either of the two, so you can always use it. We still have situation we use them, but you need to understand how these things are, how they are written, so that in case you want to store your value, you can always know how to make use of them. Now, the next one we want to talk about are the special ones. So those special ones apply to programming language like Solidity, that deals with money directly. So special, we have things like address, user equals to, let's copy an address here. This is an address. So you can see it now. So don't forget, we are dealing with money here. Always keep that in mind. You are dealing with money when you are writing smart contracts. So that's why we deal with things like address, user address, and some things like that. So this is not in things like JavaScript, but you have it here because you need to deal with user wallet and things like that. Now, the next thing before we run this over, we have some other interesting one that carries some things themselves, which we'll still talk about in the later part of the video. But at least with all this, you should be able to get started and have idea. These are the major ones you will likely be using most often as you are programming with Solidity. Now, in other programming language like JavaScript, there is something we call like known data type or undefined. There's nothing like that in Solidity. And remember, I've told you earlier as well, there's nothing like floating or decimal number. It's not accepted. You see, immediately there was an error thrown, so we don't use it in Solidity. So keep all those in mind. So I believe you now have idea of these variable types and the data types we have in Solidity. So meanwhile, at the end of this video, I have an exercise for you, which I always encourage you, like I said, to do, to expand your knowledge, and at the same time to also help create enough content for you and other students that will be coming. All these things, you will always find it coming back to the platform to check it later in future to help you out. Because the reality is that, let me tell you, in programming, don't learn to cram, because there are too many things to know in a particular programming language. So You don't need to cram everything. You just need to know the concept that, okay, if I'm in this situation that I need to solve programmatically, what do I need? Okay, I need a function, I need a boolean, I need a string. You get what I'm saying? You might even forget how this was written. Just Google it, and Google search engine should always be your friend. There's nothing secretive about that, because there's too many parts to learn, and trying to cram everything will be a very bad idea. I'm telling you. So that's it. Just be aware of them like you are doing in this course. Then each time, that's why you should not joke with the forum. We are creating a very huge support-based platform for programmers in Web3. Contribute your part. Don't forget you also even earn while doing that as well. So just like any learning to code with these courses, the same way you do, contributing. But beyond that, you are also adding up for your own future and the future of Web3 programmers and upcoming students. So that's it. Before we go, like I told you, the exercise I have for you, we are putting together that full list of Solidity variable data type out there. Now, this is what you want to do. A lot of these things I can just put it out myself, but I want to be sure you are really, taking time to assimilate what you are learning, not just watching this like, you watch a lot of tutorial on YouTube and things like that. So now, what you need to do is you need to do a research on different data types of variable in Solidity. Then check the forum that the link will be in the description of the video. Try to check it out. Go there, post just one, maximum of one Solidity data type that have not been added, so that we can make the list unique, just one, and then other students can add, and then we continue to add it and grow it that way. So that's it for this video. And don't forget, the official forum is there for you. I think it should also be below the video. In case you have any comment, any addition, any subtraction, or even criticism, just make it constructive as much as you can for us to improve on the course, or things you think we should cover or remove. So I will be expecting you there, and see you in the next video when we'll continue to talk more about building blocks of Solidity programming language to program your smart contract. I remain Solomon Foske of Programming FAQ. Keep the programming spirit high and alive.